Okay, somebody was explaining this earlier, and I think that this may actually be a decent explanation, that most Americans and most of the faithful are suffering from post-traumatic Francis disorder, or a post-Francis trauma disorder. You're so used to being yelled at, called a rigid, made fun of, mocked, had your mass taken away from you, have your priest be defrocked, etc., etc. The clown mass or the rainbow mass and the woman deacon and Susan from the parish council screaming from the lectern at you, that you're jaded. And so I understand most people are, I'm not, you're church, you're not talking me into being positive about this Prevost guy. He's a con man. He's in with all the rest of them. He did this and then. Okay, well, I want to talk about formation. Now, here on the Mike Church Show, we don't do things the way other talk radio shows do them, because I care about you, because I think what I say, I'm going to be judged on. You know, Sister Mary of Loyola has that wonderful little meditation you can do after communion. I read it every Sunday. I read it again yesterday. How does what I'm about to do look in the light of eternity? That really is. If you have a question about whether you should do anything, go to Sister Mary. It's Maria, or is it Mary? It's Mary of Loyola, right? It's Mary of Loyola. Go to Sister Mary of Loyola and just, how does this look in the light of eternity? And then you'll know what to do. Now, having said that, let's listen to the Augustinian friar Roberto Francis. In 2010, I don't know where the interview was, but he was asked a question about media. And this was his response. Pick it back up or start from the beginning? I think you start from the beginning. I want people to hear the whole thing.
Certainly you cannot just take at face value what's offered in today's society by mass media. And I think personally that the answer, rather than turning away, is in the area of formation. How do we teach people to become critical thinkers? How do we teach people to understand that not everything you hear or everything you read should be taken at face value? And how do we come to give people the formation that they need to read something or to hear something, and to be able to discern, if you will, to understand that that underlying the message that's being communicated is a very different message, or a very subtle message that has severe consequences for the future of society, let's say, that can or cannot be understood as a part of a much bigger picture, if you will. I began reflecting on this topic myself because of having lived outside the United States now for a number of years. And then when I would go back to the United States and perhaps just watch a TV show at random or visiting friends or relatives, seeing the change that has taken place in the kinds of content that are in sitcoms, that are spoken about on your regular TV programs, even on news shows, the kinds of messages that seem to be portrayed, and the slant that is taken at times in whichever direction, the kinds of even polemical argumentation that is presented on TV in the United States. Following through with that, I think it's not just the United States. We find that a lot in the Western world, and it changes from place to place depending where you are. After giving my intervention, an Italian came to speak to me about it and said, well, he didn't agree with what I said. For example, the mention of abortion. He said, we don't talk about that in Italy. And I said, well, maybe you don't in Italy, but we certainly do in other parts of the Western world. But then he came up himself with other examples of how the media has been used in Italy to present certain kinds of arguments, certain political questions, that in the same way, if you control the media, you can at least partially control the way people are thinking, because that's the message that people hear constantly. So again, I think our real challenge is in formation. Our challenge is in preparing people to become critical thinkers and to understand what's going on in the world.
I don't understand why you people in chat rooms want to shoot this guy. Why are you dragging him out to the center of St. Peter's Square and asking the Roman dude that cut St. Paul's head off to cut his head off? I don't get it. I mean, to the point of where I'm like, I can't, in anger here, I'm with Weisenberger wife. You people will never be happy. So I'm watching, and look, this isn't the only one. I could have played you. There's a couple of other ones out there I could have played you, where there are interviews where Friar Prevost is talking. I'm happy to just hear someone that has the sea of, is in the sea of Peter, that actually knows what formation is. That's a victory. What I'm talking about is formation for critical thinking. What is this critical thinking you speak of? Now, granted, this is when he was an Augustinian friar, and as you could see in the clip there, he has his habit on. You know, on Friday's show, when I interviewed Brother Andre, you know, Brother talked about this. You can watch the video of Brother and I's interview on the YouTube. You people that are watching on YouTube, you can watch it when the show is over. And I think Brother had mentioned this, that, you know, there is some formation there. The fact that he knows what formation is, and he says something about critical thinking. Name the bishop outside of Athanasius Schneider and maybe Cardinal Sarah or Burke or some of the more doctrinaire ones that we know of, has even spoken publicly about formation in the last decades. Just name one. So, in any event, I'm not popping the champagne cork, but again, my role as laity, like Father Farge said yesterday in his homily at St. Patrick's Basilica at Old St. Patrick's in New Orleans. What did Father say, Maggie? He goes, our job is to continue what we do, to try to become saints. That's our job. We have a new Holy Father. Hopefully he is helpful to that end, and we're going to remain in prayer because we're Catholics. That's what we do. You know what? My old okay. Nick Rizzuto sent me something. All right, Rizzuto, I'm going to call you out because I thought it was so well put. This is what Nick sent me. Yes, Wilkow's old producer. He and I have been having a dialogue and messaging on Twitter. Hey, KingDude, you know what the biggest thing that separates us from the evangelicals and the Proddies are? I used to think it was the Eucharist, but it's not. Catholics trust that their church will endure. Protestants keep starting new ones, constantly purity testing their theology, their pastors, their doctrine. Because unlike us, they weren't promised the gates of hell wouldn't prevail. You'd be obsessed with purity tests, too, if your church didn't have a divine guarantee it would survive. I think that, dude, take that, carve it and chisel it into stone, and send it to everyone. He's right. Whether Pope Leo XIV is a takeoff on Leo XIII or not, the church, the gates of hell will not prevail. Here, I'll send it to you, Maggie. And you put it in that perspective, and when you think about it like that, kind of changes. The gates of hell will not prevail against it. Now, there's one more thing on this. I can't find the story, but I know it's out there somewhere. That in his first interview, or I guess he sat down with the media yesterday, or he was in front of the media, Pope Leo XIV was asked, why did you pick Leo? Why Leo? And you know what his answer was? And I got this from Michael Thomas of Sharon, from Michael Jadis, head of the Catholic Land Movement. This is on his Twitter, on his x.com. I retweeted it. He said it's because primarily because of Rerum Novarum. Michael Thomas is sharing. This is the tweet. Over the past year, I've been traveling the country, around the country with the Catholic Land Movement, giving talks about Rerum Novarum to parish communities and packed living rooms. Some of you have attended those talks. In those talks, I specifically address how Rerum Novarum, that's an encyclical for those of you that don't know, papal encyclical written by Pope Leo XIII. Principles motivate the contemporary work of Catholic Land Movement. Needless to say, I was overjoyed to see our new Pope, in one of his very first public addresses as Pope, discuss Rerum Novarum as the motivator for why he chose Leo as his name. So let's familiarize ourselves. As I said the other day, it's on the Vatican website. They have every encyclical ever written. If you just Google search for Rerum Novarum or Bang or DuckDuckGo, whoever you're using, it'll take you right to the page. As a matter of fact, you can read it in Latin if you want to, or you can read the English version of it. And as I said on Friday's show, Rerum Novarum is so powerful of a message. On the 40th anniversary of it being published, it got an update. There was a sequel written, Quadragesimo Anno, or 40 years later. So if Pope Leo XIV has chosen Leo because of Rerum Novarum, which many think is like one of the, if not the most important encyclicals, which addresses modernity and what the Holy Father thought was going to happen to labor. I mean, it says it at the top of the encyclical there. Yeah, Maggie has the chat. It's in the chat room. Rights and duties of capital and labor. I think it's one of the most important encyclicals ever written. Obviously, again, how many get sequels? Well, Rerum Novarum did. And if Pope Leo XIV actually cited and said, well, I was kind of inspired by Rerum Novarum because I've read it. Let's just imagine for a moment how excited we should be that we have a Holy Father that's actually read previous encyclicals. Wait a minute, you should all be going, wait a minute, stop the tape. You should all be going right about now. Wait, you read, wait a minute, you're the Holy Father. You actually read an encyclical that you didn't write? Did you read what's the papal bull concerning the old Latin Mass? What's it? Quo prima. Did you read, by any chance, Quo prima? So in any event, I think that there is room for optimism, especially considering the pontificate you just came out of. 844-527-8723, our call-in line telephone number. This portion of the program brought to you by my friend Mike Lindell and mypillow.com/KingDude. mypillow.com/KingDude. Great deals right now on Mike's special Giza cotton sheets. Starting at, they're all $49.95 for a set in 12 different colors, regardless of the size, whether it's a twin, whether it's a queen, whether it's a king, or whether it's a Cali King. They have the sheets, and they're beautiful, and they're soft at mypillow.com/KingDude. And as a benefit, spend over $100 and you'll get $100 worth of digital coupons and stuff that you can buy elsewhere for free. Don't cost nothing.
0.0.
mypillow.com/KingDude. Of course, don't forget the classic MyPillow, the My Slippers, and all the other great items that are there that are made primarily by Americans in America. mypillow.com/KingDude. All right. Let's do some more digital media files. Do you have... Wait a minute. His brother was on Newsmax? Okay. All right. You have to... Roberto Francis Prevost. Pope Leo XIV's brother is kind of outspoken. I'm not going to tell you what select word he called Nancy Pelosi. But the New York Post is all over it. If you want to go to NewYorkPost.com, it's on the cover. Here is the brother, Pope Leo XIV.
Being a big brother.
Being a big brother.
On the big TV, sat there in awe. My mind, the feelings of joy and exuberation, I can't describe. Imagine it's your little brother. He's the Pope.
Yes.
It's an indescribable feeling. I'm super proud of him. We all are. We love him to death.
Wow.
Like 5 minutes after the announcement, when I was sitting in the living room watching the TV and watching him on the balcony, and he started to do his initial prayer and speech to the crowd out there in Italian, and I thought, I'm not sure what he's saying. Then he switched to Spanish, and I thought, okay, quit showing off, you little jerk. But he did his thing, and my mind immediately flashed back to the 50s and 60s growing up, and I thought, remember that time way back when we used to tease him about being Pope, and he's Pope.
John Daniel Davidson at the Federalist.com. Hold on. Pope Leo XIV will probably not be Francis 2.0. It didn't take long after Pope Leo XIV, formerly Cardinal Roberto Francis Prevost, emerged onto the loggia of St. Peter's Basilica on Thursday as the new leader of the Catholic Church, for social media commentators on the right to begin decrying him as Francis 2.0. Yes, and John Daniel, they all made their way to crusadechannel.com/chat. How did that happen? They're all in there. This snap judgment was based largely on his social media history of reposting criticisms of President Trump and Vice President Vance on immigration policy, as well as a few reposts of left-wing claptrap on climate change and race relations. So does this mean that the 79-year-old Chicago-born Pope Leo XIV is going to be the next Papa Francis? The short answer is probably not. Setting aside the obvious that Pope Leo is far more conservative on issues like abortion and homo marriage than most MAGA influencers, that's a kind of a put these things in perspective here. He's very conservative when it comes to abortion. By the way, Charlie Kirk looked his voting record up. He's a registered Republican. Seemingly votes every election. I don't know what he voted for. There's a possibility, though, that he voted for President Trump. Heaven forfend that he voted for the two communists that are United States senators in Illinois. I hazard a guess not because I discovered a trove of old expos where he praises Trump, owns the libs, and defends the Second Amendment. I say it because in his very first decisions as Supreme Pontiff, Pope Leo appears to be far more traditional and liturgically orthodox than his predecessor. In particular, he seems to have a special devotion to the traditional Latin Mass. I think that this is the linchpin here. Tradition is going to survive. It has survived. It has survived, despite Francis and others' attempt to kill it. I don't believe that those attempts were successful. As a matter of fact, I think there are more young people who are Catholics today and who are tradition bound than there probably have been since the 1950s. So I think that the project to snuff it out was boneheaded, evil, and it didn't work. And why would you pursue that? Would be my point. Why, if you're going to come out with guns a-blazing, as I said, train your fire on the enemy, not those inside the circle. And then John Daniel says, this matters a great deal more than whether he has policy disagreements with Trump over things like immigration or gun control, and is a far better predictor of what kind of papacy he will have. I agree, as Brother Andre said in our interview on Friday during the Power Hour, and I implore all of you to go listen to it. a brother says, look, the papacy, this is not Congress, it's not the Senate. Stop comparing it to like it's an election, and like the College of Cardinals did the same thing as electing a president. The papacy is a supernatural entity, okay? God himself created it. It's not the presidency. It's unlike any other office in the world, and that's intentional. We'll pick this up when we come